The HOMEChem experiment has been showing us all that indoor air can be much more polluted than outdoor air. And you may be asking yourself, how can I control the air that my family breathes? Short answer, ventilation. Take bad air out, bring good air in. Take it away, ventilation guru. I will take my family.
All right, so on the table, we have 5 different kinds of ventilation. You can learn more about indoor air quality with Hayward Score and with Healthy Indoors magazine, so please do pursue both of those resources. Now, because we're all about testing and measuring the home performance dynamics in any home, of course I want you to test. Make sure that you're using CPS products, FLIR, Testo tools, making sure that you're also doing a blower door test with a Retrotech or a Minneapolis piece of equipment, because the air tightness of a home has a big effect on how much fresh air comes in and stale air gets out and where that happens. If you need any of those tools, you can find them all at TrueTechTools.com. And in my experience, with each of these, you're gonna find, once you know enough about the dynamics of home performance and you know enough about the products themselves, one of these systems is going to be perfect for any given situation. So I'm gonna run through these 5 systems. We've got AirCycler, Fantech, Broan-Nutone, RenewAire, and Ultra-Aire. Each of them has different features and characteristics, and so I'm going to describe each of them to you right now. Now, the most inexpensive option of all of these is AirCycler. They only make controls and sensors. So essentially, their point is that if you're thinking it's expensive to have fresh air, you're dead wrong. They have choices for very minimal cost to install and to operate. Basically, you can use these pieces of equipment with any hardware you have in your home. Whatever bath fan, kitchen range hood, and furnace or air conditioner you have, these controls will work with those to make your home provide more fresh air and get rid of more stale air. So if you're on a tight budget and you need someplace to start, AirCycler is the place to go. Next up is Broan-Nutone. They have a full range of ventilation products, fans, and controls, and some of them are very easy to get a hold of. You can go to any big box store. They can also get quite quiet and efficient, both of which are good things. The bath fan that you see here has a light built in, blah, 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 all the stuff that you'll see in bath fans. The things that are very important that anybody who is an expert at this company will tell you is that the bath fan placement is very critical. Number one, the duct, which is going to hook up to this outlet that comes off the fan, should be going in a straight line, and it should be as big as possible so that it introduces very little backup pressure, which is called static pressure, to the fan. Also, this damper that is in here should close completely to disallow air from coming the wrong way through it, right? It should only go out. Often, these will come with a piece of tape on the damper when they come out of the box. You should make sure that that tape comes off of there. Just remind whoever it is that's installing it, maybe take that off. If you have a fan that's acting badly, it's really loud or it doesn't seem to be moving air, check that first. That's a very common problem. Now, these should be placed over the shower in any bathroom that has a shower. Its job is to exhaust moisture and smells. Moisture most importantly, so not in the middle of the room, not over the toilet, over the shower is the best place, especially if the shower is at the end of the room. It's going to grab everything on its way out the house. So this is very important that you have point exhaust. Local exhaust is not just for tight houses. Every single house in the universe should have exhaust in the bathrooms and in the kitchen. That goes outside, period. So new houses also are required to have mechanical ventilation. This is a dedicated mechanical ventilation system whose job it is to take stale air out and bring fresh air in, or one or the other of those depending on pressure effects. Now, the Tiny Lab has all Broan-Nutone ventilation products in it. This happens to be the core out of my ERV. You can think of this as an equalizing ventilator, meaning that it takes equal amounts of stale air out and fresh air in, and it tries to make them the same temperature and relative humidity as they interchange. Now, we started with an HRV core. If you start researching ventilation systems, you'll find HRVs and ERVs. I happen to know, because I talk to a lot of ventilation companies, that almost all of them are moving towards ERV only. ERV exchanges both the temperature and the humidity between the two streams of air. HRV is a plastic core that does not allow the humidity to transfer. In some cases, you might still want an HRV if you have a really extreme climate, but in general, you're going to be using an ERV core, which has paper. Now, this has two different streams of air. It has two different sets of flutes, is what these are called. They're little channels that air goes through. So one set of flutes goes this way, and one set of flutes goes this way. Incoming air, outgoing air, and they brush up against each other inside of this heat exchanger core. We'll talk about these on the other models as well, but this is important. We switched over. We, as you know, traveled the Tiny Lab through a bunch of different places, 13,000 miles around the country, and we found that an ERV core worked in almost every climate much, much better than an HRV core did. Next up, Fantech. Now, as you can tell by the name, they take fans very seriously, fans of all kinds. They have bath fans, they have radon fans, dryer duct booster fans. They even have HEPA filtration systems, and they invented the inline fan. The inline fan looks like this. This is a system that enables you to put the bath exhaust fan, or any exhaust fan that you want, not exactly where the register is. So you could put this, for example, in your attic, and then hook PVC or ducts of any kind to one end of it, and then split them off. So you could have actually multiple bathrooms exhausted from one fan if you wanted to, and it's distant. It's remote from the bathroom, so you don't get any of the noise. This is a very quiet, very efficient fan, and all of them are based on this design. Now, this one happens to be an infinitely variable flow, so you would have a dial here that you can just turn to exactly whatever CFM you want. In general, that is hard to replicate on an ERV side. Now, Fantech equipment is what you're going to find in my new house that we're building, and I hope that you stay tuned to our channel for that here in Atlanta. The system that they are going to enable us to use on our super airtight house is different than the super airtightness of the Tiny Lab. We have passive pressure relief. Pressure relief is something you're really going to have to think about when you start exhausting air in just one direction. So bringing fresh air into the house without exhausting the same amount with an equalizing ventilator, or exhausting air from the house without providing air to it. You're going to need something like this, which is a hole in the wall that opens up automatically on a motor, which is very important, not just based on a damper that opens up when things push on it. But this one that's from AirCycler is like the ones that are installed in my Tiny Lab that are from Broan-Nutone. What Fantech has is a fan-powered makeup air system. So you would actually have, in this case, a fan pushing air out of the house. Generally, the kitchen exhaust fan is going to be the most powerful one in the house. We're talking about hundreds, up to 1,000 or more CFM, that's cubic feet per minute of airflow. Their concept is, if you want to really provide pressure relief for that, you could have 18 of these installed in a wall of the house, which would all open when that thing turns on, which is not a very good, elegant way to do it. Or you could have another fan that has perhaps a duct silencer and perhaps a preheater hooked up to it, so that now you have the ability to maintain pressure equalization in your house. Pressure equalization is very important because if you don't know that the air is coming in through this fan system, then it might be coming down through your chimney, meaning you would smell the soot, or back through your water heater flue, which means now you have carbon monoxide and other stuff coming in, and HOMEChem taught us that that is not a good idea. You always want to be using your kitchen exhaust hood every time you cook, not just when you burn something. So make sure that if you are using that, you have a makeup air system that's going to work very well. Now, their ERVs also have what's called counterflow cores, which means that these flutes are longer. It's not just a square. It actually moves through, and then they go in line with each other like a highway system. That's going to make the cores on those Fantech ERVs slightly more efficient, which is good. Now we come to RenewAire, which makes ventilation systems that have MERV-rated filters, which is important if you need to know exactly how much particulate is being filtered out of the air. Sometimes that can be a big deal if you have something like an environmental sensitivity. Also, they have the ability to have their fans boost their power, basically, to keep track with the static pressure. Now, these fans will keep up with that up to 1 inch of water column of static pressure, which is kind of a lot for an exhaust fan or a ventilation system like this, which means you don't have to worry that your 80 CFM that you set it to is going to slip and that it's going to be different based on what the installer does with the ducts, or if the filters get dirty, which sometimes you forget to clean the filters. I even forget to do that sometimes. That static pressure control is also very important because now we have boost mode, which takes it slightly out of the efficiency that you were looking at, but we always want the ability to turn our ventilation systems both down and up. If your neighbor brings 3 big dogs over and you're gonna give them a bath for some weird reason, you are a very nice neighbor, you need to be able to boost that exhaust to get the stale air that's a lot more stale now out and bring way more fresh air in to kind of flush the house out. So this ability to have boost mode means that these will be able to still deliver, even though this fan is going to kick up, produce more pressure, it's going to be able to adapt to that and be able to sense the static pressure buildup. Now their cores, as you can see here, here's the filters that we were talking about, the MERV rated filters. Their cores do not have, for the engineers in the audience, turbulent features to them. They are actually perfectly laminar, is what it's called. They're meant to induce a laminar airflow, meaning that there is an air film within that flute that I was describing, where the exhaust air is going through and then the incoming air is going through. They're brushing up against each other. There's actually an air film separating those air streams from the core material. And that, in this case, is so that you don't get dust and particles deposited in the middle of this core. All of the particles that you'll find are going to be in the filter or at the very leading edge of this core, meaning that you could just vacuum it off. If you are making it more turbulent, it will boost the efficiency slightly, but you also then get the dirt way in the middle of this. You're never going to get that out. You're going to have to replace the core faster. So it's a trade-off always. You have to think about how you're going to deal with the particulate, the molecules that you're trying to get out, and remember to visit HOMEChem if you don't know what we're talking about. This is really important stuff for your family. And then making sure that you also have the efficiency side of things, which is generally always a secondary side effect. RenewAire also, by the way, makes an explosion-proof ERV, which I think is super cool. And last up, Ultra-Aire. Now these units are all about dehumidification as well as ventilation. You'll notice a couple things that are a little different about this. They do use an ERV core, like the other whole house ventilators we were talking about, the equalizing ventilators, but this one is not an equalizing ventilator. It only has an incoming stream of air from outside, which means it's going to slightly pressurize the house. That can be important. We're going to talk about that in a second. This core that they're using is not to make it more efficient. It's actually so that they can hit the dew point faster, so that they can wring more water out of the air, which makes it highly efficient on the removing water side of things. That's a pretty cool feature and is a little bit heady, so don't worry if you don't understand that. These are particularly useful in two places where you have humid climates, where you're going to have hot, humid air coming inside and you want to dehumidify it actively, not just passively. The ERV core is going to enable you to passively dehumidify the incoming air by just brushing it up against the outgoing air. That's pretty good, but if you want to be absolutely sure that you're always hitting the same humidity set point in your house, then you need to use an active system, which is what this does. Now, in these particularly humid climates, the worst being Florida, it is important to have a slight positive pressure on the house so that all the cool, dry air is making its way out, as opposed to warm, moist air coming in through the gaps and cracks, so that you don't develop things like mildew, mold inside of wall cavities and floor cavities. Also, these are very useful in new, efficient homes. If you are buying a new home, you can't help it being efficient. It must be because of codes. So you are buying a more airtight, more insulated home nowadays. And for that reason, the air conditioner is running less often, which means that the air conditioner's job of wringing the humidity out of the air isn't actually happening as much as it was in older homes, which is where these units can take up the slack for that.
As you can see, there are many ways you can ventilate your home
So do your research and pick your tool.
and make your home's air healthier and safer for your family.
If you want to post comments and questions below, we will address them. Please subscribe, participate, tune in next time.